This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis.
If you thought we were done with goaltender interference, I'm sorry, that will not be the case today. Oh yeah, we could probably do 2 hours on it. We may have to do 2 hours on it to try to carve through the many layers of this. I promise we won't, but it will get a fair airing over the next couple of hours. Lots to get into after a busy Saturday in the National Hockey League and Super Bowl Sunday with all afternoon action. Chris Peters from ESPN.com will join us in hour number one. Pittsburgh Penguins lost last night. Actually, the New Jersey Devils played a whale of a game against the Penguins. They were winners. Jason Mackey covers the Pittsburgh Penguins for the Post Gazette. He will join us as well. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada was in Boston for the Bruins and the Maple Leaf game on Saturday night. He will join us later on in the program as well. And, of course, it's Sunday, and that means it's Fantasy 5 Day with Steve Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com, with this week's Fantasy 5. Hashtag Fantasy 5 help for you and your fantasy hockey pool. We can all use it. There's only a couple of months left in the season. And Steve will have 5 more names for you to keep an eye on. Maybe you can acquire for some help down the stretch. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles to follow us. HockeyUnfiltered.com is where you'll find us, along with the Hockey Unfiltered app, streaming live on Facebook, on Periscope, on YouTube Live, all powered by Primetime Radio. Oh, yeah, what a busy day it was on Saturday in the NHL. It's Super Bowl Sunday, but before the big game tonight, let's do that hockey with all afternoon action. We had excitement. We had controversy in the 13 games in the NHL, and we get 3 matinee appetizers today, so it's all pretty good. We get Vegas and Washington as the first one to get going, Ottawa, Montreal, San Jose, Carolina, and then everyone can shut it down and focus on the important things. TV commercials during the football game later on. As was typical with the overloaded Saturday schedule, there was a bunch of really nice goals. There were some really outstanding saves, a little bit of shakeup in the standings. Things look a little bit differently on Sunday than they did 24 hours ago, and probably will again 24 hours from now. What busy day would be complete without a little controversy? I expected that Nashville Predators defenseman Alexei Emelin would be getting a call from the Department of Player Safety for his bulldozing hit on Mark Stahl of the New York Rangers. If you want to see this, you'll have to go looking for it, because the NHL PR network and NHL.com don't want you to see it, so it's not part of their highlight packages. That is weak. That is weak. Nashville Predators' Philip Forsberg will have a hearing with the Department of Player Safety for his hit on Jimmy Vesey of the New York Rangers. I'm a little surprised at this one. I thought it would be the other way around. We'll get into that in a little bit. And of course, what would a day of NHL action be without a little more talk about goaltending interference and the drama and the saga that continues to play out and is going to continue to play out for the next little while? It's a great quote from Fluto Shinzawa of the Boston Globe. Fish a quarter out of your pocket, give it a flip. You now know how it feels to determine the outcome of a goaltender interference challenge. That sums it up pretty nicely. You know, just a week ago, we thought that when Commissioner Gary Bettman made his comments during the All-Star Weekend media availability, that things would get better. He said, we're sending out a memo. We're going to remind the referees that video review is meant to look at and reverse egregious mistakes. Thought that might put things kind of back in a good place. Just kind of go back to the original intent of the rule. If there's a big mistake, here's the opportunity to fix it, or as the league likes to say, make a better call. How about the right call? And we could all resume our normal lives. So much for that kind of Pollyanna thinking. If anything, we are farther away from a solution to this confusion, and I sense this problem is going to get worse before it gets better. Don't you wish we could go back to the laughter and fun-filled days of the offside challenge in video review? A simpler time. No, I don't think so. Okay, so before we go too much further, I will refer you back to yesterday's program. If you missed it, our segment yesterday with Josh Smith from scoutingtherefs.com. He went through a bunch of different plays from Thursday night. There were a whole number of them. We went through a bunch of them and gave you the information about how the rule is applied and how the process works. It's a good starting point. It is a good refresher because there are a bunch of radio and TV people that are broadcasting games that could use that refresher and have no idea how the process works and are still spewing out incorrect information. And that only makes this problem worse. I understand coaches, players, executives, and most importantly, fans are frustrated with all this. But if you don't know how the rule works, you are only contributing to the problem, media members. That's part of the reason why there is so much focus on this issue. That's why everybody's talking about it, because everybody's spewing out stuff that's incorrect. And we're hearing about this, and there's so much misinformation that's being spewed out. We're not hearing about the great players and the great plays and the great games, because there is a whole bunch of that. Until we get some sort of resolution to this, this story is going to dominate whenever the NHL is talked about. It's the first thing top of mind whenever a discussion is initiated. It started out on Thursday night when we had 3 games where everybody held up their hands and went, wow, what's happening here? This can't be right. Things are only going to get churned up again today and tomorrow and the day after that. We are not any closer than we were a week ago to fixing this problem. We are no closer to anyone's understanding of what is going on. Now, again, this is always going to be an interpretation by the referee of whether or not a goaltender is interfered with. Each ref sees things differently. I understand that. When you have cases of similar circumstances where there's a goaltender who appears to be brushed, or there appears to be stick contact with a skater and a goaltender, for instance, and you see different rulings applied, this is where the confusion starts. See, we're trying to get to the essence of the difficulty as opposed to just griping about it. As we go through the rest of the NHL season in the final third and the games get more important, we've seen the intensity ramp up since the end of the All-Star break. These are going to get more and more difficult for these calls to be made. We're going to have more and more of this kind of action taking place out on the ice. But this lack of an explanation, this lack of clarity and exposure to the process and making sure that everyone has the right information and has the facts, it looks like you got something to hide. It looks like you don't know what you're doing. And I'm not accusing anyone of wrongdoing because, again, in our discussion yesterday with Josh Smith, the rule has been applied correctly as it is written in the rule book. It's always an interpretive call. I'm not accusing anyone of wrongdoing, but it's time to get out in front of this mess. It is, in fact, it's time to not get out in front of it, but catch up to what's going on. This is an issue that shouldn't be the number one story. This is an issue that should have been resolved and should have been taken care of. Going back to last weekend at the NHL All-Star Weekend, wasn't there a bunch of video that the league showed to GMs? Didn't they meet? Didn't they talk about this? Why don't we see those videos? Why don't we see a greater explanation about what is and what isn't interference? Real game examples. Reading the legal mumbo jumbo on the NHL social media or on the NHL website, if you can dig through it and find it in terms of the situation room stuff, reading the quote from the rule book does not help. It would help in some cases when people don't know the rules, I guess, but when you have video of actual examples and you can offer a greater explanation and you can offer greater clarity as to what the issue is, let's see it. Elliot Friedman reported on Hockey Night in Canada last night that teams have reached out to the league and and ask them for an explanation about what is being discussed between the referees who are on the ice and looking at video and in contact with the situation room, with the NHL office in Toronto. They want a bit of information about what that discussion is, what they are looking for, what's taking place on the ice, what are the key points in terms of determining what is goaltender interference, what isn't a penalty, what's allowed, and what will be disallowed. They said you don't have to release it to the public, but we want that information to help us understand. Well, why wouldn't you release that information to the public, first of all? Because if the general manager knows the rule, but your millions of fans have no understanding what the rule is, how does that help? You've got to help them understand what the process is, what the rule is, how the decision is made. Why isn't this information going to be made available to everyone? This is a league that is very, very concerned about PR and public perception, and they want to manage the message, and the only message right now is goaltender interference is a crapshoot. You want to get away from that. You want to resolve that. Open up the process. Provide your fans, your players, your coaches, your executives with some clarity. This is a fixable problem. One of the keys to success that Gary Bettman talked about as his 25 years of commissioner in the NHL said one of the keys to success is operating in transparency and giving clear information, letting people know what the situation is. The absolute opposite is happening here. Players are upset about it. Coaches are upset about it. Jeff Blashill freaked out on the bench last night in the game between Detroit and Florida because a call went against the Red Wings late. Honestly, I don't think it was that big a deal. There was a little brush between Jonathan Huberdeau and Peter Mrazek. There wasn't a lot of contact. Mrazek tried to sell it because it looked like he went down in a heap from the slightest brush. And if there wasn't all this attention focused on goaltender interference, this would have been no big deal. But instead, Blashill is seen in video waving his arms at the referees and screaming and hollering, so much so that he got tossed from the game. This is a manageable problem. You got to get out in front of it. Give the players the information. Let the coaches know. And most of all, let your TV and radio people know who are spewing absolute garbage out there sometimes. They are guessing. They don't know the rules. One of them last night said, oh, well, at least, the coach can understand that it's the officials in Toronto that make the call. It's not the referee on the ice. No, it isn't. It is the referee that makes those calls of goaltender interference. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Just blurting out stuff that is incorrect or unclear. In two separate instances, I'm watching games last night, and I'm shaking my head at what I am seeing and hearing. Oh, well, that's the frustrating part. The league makes that decision on interference. No, it's the referee that makes that decision. The league decides offside. Or in another instance, wasn't goaltender interference, but the analyst said, I don't really know the protocol here. I don't know if the refs can talk to each other. Really? Maybe you should look that up before you step in and take the job as the expert analyst on the broadcast. That's mind-boggling. We'll get into more of this TV stuff later. I've had some thoughts on TV and an idea that I think needs to be looked at and needs to be explored, and some other suggestions. I think it's a real missed opportunity. I want to talk about a bunch of games from Saturday night, a bunch of interesting results. Interested to see how some of these teams move forward, and we'll look ahead to the three on the afternoon Sunday schedule as well. Vegas, Washington, Ottawa, Montreal, San Jose, and Carolina. Jason Mackey from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette will join us a little bit later on. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada will be coming up in the program. And, of course, Steve Laidlaw, the managing editor from DauberHockey.com, with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, all coming up on the program right after the break. Chris Peters from ESPN.com will join us. A little Olympics, a little prospects talk, a little NHL talk, and a few other things as well. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Love your feedback on this. I'm really curious to see where this goes from here, because it's going to get churned up for another 24, 48, 72 hours or so for sure. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, back after the break.
There's special savings for Hockey Unfiltered listeners with our new ticket partner, Seat Giant. And Canadian fans can also purchase in Canadian dollars. Go to SeatGiant.ca, find the tickets you're looking for. Doesn't matter if it's NHL games, concerts, or any other event. You get a special discount with the promo code TODD. That's Todd with 2 Ds. Just enter the code, get the discount, you save. That's simple. Save on your next ticket purchase with Hockey Unfiltered and Seat Giant. The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Search engine optimization is the key to success for your online business. It can be the key to success for any business. 1-844-SEO-LEAD is the number to call to get your business at the top of all searches. An official partner of Google, they have the tools necessary to make your business the one people notice first. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now you can nominate your dog or any dog you love as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day through Instagram. Every Saturday, Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis will take your nominations for the Dog of the Day. Use the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. Send us a photo with the dog on Twitter or Instagram to nominate your dog. We choose a winner at the end of the show, and your dog will be recognized in the HU Dog of the Day gallery on our website and Facebook page. Hashtag HU Dog of the Day. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more.
Welcome back. It's the Sunday edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com. Streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app. You can download it now at the App Store. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Jason Mackey will join us later on this hour, talk a little Pittsburgh Penguins. They've lost last night on Saturday night to the New Jersey Devils. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada later on the program. And Steve Laidlaw as well with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Pleased to welcome back one of our friends. We enjoy it when he comes to visit. Always get good hockey talk and stories. You can check him out on ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter at Chris M. Peters. And Chris joins us now. Chris, while the NHL is not sending players to the Olympics, this is an opportunity for some talented younger players to put their talents on display and show what they have, and probably create some pretty great stories in the time being as well.
Oh, absolutely, Todd. I mean, this is going to be it's going to be a weird one. I'll tell you that much. You know, in terms of hockey, I think that this is a great opportunity to showcase kind of the quality of professional hockey in Europe. As we know, it's not going to be like the NHL players being there in terms of quality, but I think the competitiveness is really going to be compelling. And certainly it's still going to be hockey of a fairly high quality. And as you mentioned, a lot of young guys. And I think there are quite a few players that NHL fans are going to want to watch with great interest. The U.S. has, 4 guys from college programs that'll be on their roster. Rasmus Dahlin will be playing for Sweden. He's going to be the number 1 pick this summer. And then you've got guys in Finland like Miro Heiskanen, 3rd overall to Dallas last year, and Eeli Tolvanen, who was a late first-round draft pick from the Predators. So I mean, guys like that, and Kirill Kaprizov from Russia is possibly one of the best prospects outside of the NHL. It's just a matter of will he ever come and sign with the Minnesota Wild. So I mean, those are the types of guys that we're looking at, and I think that makes it as exciting for NHL fans, because a lot of those guys are going to be playing pretty significant roles on their teams despite their young age. So it's very good to see.
The other interesting story I think is going to be worth following, and we'll probably get some interesting coverage, is Brian Gionta and his participation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that he hasn't played much this year, he played one game with Rochester, scored a goal on a breakaway, a nice move, showed he still got the wheels. They really packed it in Rochester the other night to send him off right, and I thought that was especially cool to see. Just that people have really rallied around these guys. He played in the Deutschland Cup, which was only 3 games. That's the only games that this team has played and will play. They're not even playing any exhibitions when they get to South Korea. So it's kind of, he's got a really tough job because he's the captain of his team. He's got Olympic experience. He's kind of a guy that all these players are going to be looking to really lead them, because they don't have much time together, and so they got to come together quickly. So a lot of that kind of falls on the internal leadership group, and this team has kind of had to rely on group chats. So they have a website where they go over video and systems together and stuff, and it's just that's the way that they have to prepare. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. So to see Gionta come back and how dedicated he was to becoming an Olympian, to being a contributor, to being a leader, a guy that this team could really go to and have that central figure and core player is really impressive. And I think he's going to do a great job with it. I think the U.S. has a real uphill battle. They're also dealing with having lost Jim Johansson, the GM, who passed away, shockingly, just a little over about 2 weeks ago. And it's just there's so many different things, but I think that Gionta is the kind of guy that is really going to rally this team.
Chris Peters is with us from ESPN.com, covers NHL prospects. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris M. Peters. I wanted to ask you about Jim Johansson, who did pass away about a week ago. I thought it was really a nice gesture that Team USA has not named a replacement general manager. His name will continue to be as the general manager of this team.
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised that they weren't going to replace him. I mean, administratively, Ben Smith, who was kind of like a director of player personnel kind of role for this team, help scout. He's going to handle a lot of the administrative duties. But they wanted to make sure that this team would always be known as Jim Johansson's team, and the personal touch on this team from him, in terms of every player on this team except for one, played internationally prior to the Olympics. And so that means that they had direct contact with Jim Johansson, because he's been there had been there since 2003 in that role. And so that's a really important thing, is that all of these guys have that little extra motivation to play for JJ. And it's also kind of a situation where they're all on the same page, because he put this team together very much like he would many other USA hockey teams. I think one of the things that he repeatedly said in the build-up to the Olympics is that he wanted this to be, look, and feel like USA hockey, and that's kind of the players that they tried to bring in. Guys that had experience at the national team development program, guys that have been to the World Championship, guys that have gone to a Deutschland Cup, that didn't turn down invites when they had opportunities to go. That's kind of the way this team looks. So, for him to be the general manager, I mean, this is a dream come true for him. Having known him personally for a long time, I don't think I've ever seen him as excited about anything as he was about the Olympics. I think these guys are really going to go to battle for him. And Tony Granato, a close personal friend, Olympic teammates, the Wisconsin connection, guys that have known each other for so long. I think Tony Granato is taking this job a little extra personally now, to try and carry forward and to do Jim Johansson proud. So very good move on USA Hockey's part to make sure that the record books will reflect that this was his team, because this is absolutely something that he couldn't wait for.
With the Olympics coming up and NHLers not participating for the first time in a couple of decades, is this tournament really wide open? Does it favor some of the other countries in Europe or Russia who have other leagues on the go? How do you see it going forward?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think that you should always beware of Russia in any international tournament. They're going to have the most cohesive team in terms of a lot of these guys have played for world championships. A lot of these guys have won world championships together. They have, centralized a few times where they've played in various tournaments, so there's some familiarity there. They have excellent goaltending. 3 goaltenders could be a starter for every single other team in this tournament. They have the 3 best goalies on paper, and so that's going to be huge for them. And 2 of them are prospects, and Ilya Sorokin and Igor Shesterkin from the Rangers. So and they're the young guys. They may not end up getting the starting role. They have he's 38. Krosechkin, who's been fantastic this year in the KHL as well. So that's key. And then obviously you've got Datsuk and Kovalchuk and Kaprizov, who I mentioned earlier, Nikita Gusev, who's a technically Vegas Golden Knights property and absolutely lighting up the KHL this year. There's so many guys that have just done this for so long, where I think that they're the favorites. They should be the favorites on paper. That said, you got a team like Finland where they're always going to play very structured, usually have pretty solid goaltending. They've got some young talent like Heiskanen and Tolvanen to bring some more skill to that team. And then, Sweden as well is another team where they've got so many guys that have at least played in world championships, have won world championships, some guys with NHL experience. So those are teams that are going to be really tough. But when it comes to the U.S. and Canada, it's just going to be really interesting because it's a real mismatch of players. Guys with NHL experience, some without, a lot of guys with a lot of international experience, which helps. So I think that, Russia to me is by far the favorite, of the Olympic athletes from Russia, if we have to call them that technically.
Yeah.
And I think everybody else is kind of fall in line, but I wouldn't count out teams like Sweden and Finland, where they have great national team structure and have had opportunities to get together. The team that I'm probably most worried about is the U.S., mainly because they have played at the Deutschland Cup. And they're going to be together. I think they're going to have 4 practices and a game day skate before they play their first live game, and that's it. So I mean that's really where how do you come together? How can you haven't been able to prepare like the other teams have been able to prepare. So what do you do? So that's kind of where it's at. But I fully expect Russia to be the favorite. But it would not shock me to see, Finland, Sweden, even, the Czech Republic could potentially get in the mix there. But it's going to be really interesting. And I hope for the sake of the tournament that it is a bit wide open, that anything can happen, because that'll make for a very entertaining Olympics.
Yeah, it should make for some great stories as well. Now, tournament hockey a little closer to home and is coming up as well is the Beanpot.
Yes, and there'll actually be a couple Olympians playing at the beginning of that, with Jordan Greenway and Ryan Donato from BU and Harvard. Monday. It's one of the great traditions. I believe this is the 66th playing of the Beanpot. Features Northeastern, Harvard, Boston University, Boston College, and the weird thing is this year is that all of these teams are really kind of fighting for a chance. Usually most of them are pretty in good position for the national tournament. This year, they're all kind of fighting for position. And so these games matter maybe more so than they have in the past, where, they're playing. And so they'll play the semifinals are technically, Monday, and then, you go another week and then you play the finals. And last year, Harvard won it for the first time in a real long time. I think in '93 was the previous time, and Northeastern comes in the big favorite this year, and they've got some tremendous players. Dylan Sakura, Chicago Blackhawks prospect, Adam Gaudette, and Vancouver Canucks prospect, 2 of the top scorers in college hockey. They have one of the best offensive teams in hockey. They have Caden Premu and Ned, who's a freshman, and Keith Premu's son, and a really good goaltender, having a great season. And so I think that they're going to be a tough team to beat. But then you look at Boston University, and they've got guys like Brady Tkachuk, who's probably going to be a top 5 pick in the upcoming draft, and Greenway, who's going to be in the Olympics. And then on the other side, Harvard, who you've got Ryan Donato is averaging about a goal per game this year at Harvard, a Boston Bruins prospect. So lots of star power in the Beanpot this year. The teams haven't been great, but as usual, that's a lot of fun.
Now, just before I let you go really quick, too, because we've gone the whole segment, you haven't mentioned his name, but he had a good January, Casey Middlestat.
Yeah, Casey's been he's been good, and that's, you wanted to see him come out of the World Juniors and being more assertive, and I think that we're seeing a much more confident player. I think he had a bit of a slower start at Minnesota than we expected him to, but what a talent, just tremendous skill. I think that he's got an opportunity. Minnesota's been up and down this year as a team as well. It's been a really weird college hockey season with a lot of the top programs kind of struggling a bit this year. But I think that he's the kind of guy where he's just going to continue to be excellent. And, this is probably the only season that we'll see him in college hockey this year. But what a talent, and obviously a dream for him to play for his home school, play for Minnesota, and to be a star player there in year one is pretty tough to do, and he's absolutely done that.
Chris Peters from ESPN.com, at Chris M. Peters is how you follow him on Twitter. Good stuff as always, Chris. We appreciate it, and we'll have you back again soon, I'm sure. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Todd. Take it easy.
Thanks, Chris Peters from ESPN.com. I'm curious to see how this whole Olympic tournament plays out. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be wide open, and again, a really nice gesture for USA Hockey and the Olympic team. Jim Johansson remains the name as the general manager. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Lots to get into from 13 games in the NHL. What is goaltender interference? It's a bigger mystery today than it was a week ago or even 2 weeks ago. We'll get into that more before the top of the hour. Some TV stuff coming up because I think there's an interesting opportunity that's being missed in terms of coverage. Pittsburgh Penguins had been hot. They split their weekend games, had a big win Friday, lost last night to the New Jersey Devils. We'll talk to Jason Mackey from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette right after the break. The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Being on the World Wide Web is great. Being found is the tricky part. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization is the only way your business can get a leg up on the competition. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. For the necessary tools to make your business stand out in a crowded marketplace, 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. It's the Sunday edition here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com and streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada coming up later on in the program. Steve Laidlaw as well with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, some help for you and your fantasy hockey pool. Pleased to welcome back to the program the man who covers the Penguins for the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. You can follow him on Twitter at JMackeyPG. Jason Mackey joins us. And Jason, last night's game against the New Jersey Devils, I thought Pittsburgh was, I don't know, just a little off, maybe a little sluggish. I don't know if they were a bit mentally taxed from the game the night before against Washington. What did you think of their overall performance?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on that one. They spent a lot of energy Friday against Washington at home. Great performance, back and forth game, used their speed, and this one really it looked like a February game in Newark. The day after they played a really important game at home against Washington. They just didn't have it last night. They had nothing in terms of battles. They were hemmed in their own end for a while. It wasn't, Sidney Crosby said this after the game, it wasn't any sort of schematic thing. It was simply a want-to, and the Penguins didn't necessarily have that last night. The good news is the Penguins have had these performances very infrequently since the start of the new year. It's really an outlier. So as long as they're able to put this behind them rather quickly, not a big deal.
I agree. Since the start of 2018, it's almost like the switch has flipped for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I go back a little further and I said I wasn't really worried about them early on in the year. Their schedule was tough. They were dealing with some injuries. Their goaltending situation they had to sort out in terms of a backup. Once that all got fixed and we got into 2018, I think this is much more a realistic picture, last night's game maybe excluded, of the Penguins that we'll see going down the stretch.
Oh, absolutely. I would toss last night's game out. I don't think it's representative whatsoever of the Penguins. And honestly, we've seen this a little bit from them. When Patrick Hornquist goes out of the lineup, he's got a lower body injury at the moment. The Penguins kind of see their intensity level drop. And I think it shows Hornquist's value to the Penguins. But, like you said, since the start of 18, they've been so good, so consistent. Their stars have been the stars. They're playing that fast game that we've gotten used to them seeing. Goaltending performances have been a lot better. Not that last night was on Casey DeSmith. It wasn't. They've managed the puck better. Just really any area of their game you can point to, it's been much more cohesive and on point than it was last night. Last night, to me, it was just an aberration. You need to throw it away and move past.
You mentioned the injury to Patrick Hornquist, and hopefully he's not the number one goal scorer. There's Crosby, there's Malkin, and others for that. But his intensity that you mentioned is significant for Pittsburgh. They're also going to be without Connor Sheary for a bit of time as well. So again, this is the Penguins having to manage some injuries like we've seen earlier this season. Yeah,
and this isn't the mark at all against Connor Sheary, but his injury is much less significant than that of Patrick Hornquist. And I mean that in terms of how it affects the rest of the team. Hornquist doesn't have a letter on his sweater. Maybe he should, but it really doesn't matter. This team responds to him. They get jacked up the way he is. I've likened him, for anybody who's ever seen the movie The Program, to Steve Laidlaw in there. I mean, he's just that character that's like going to headbutt a windshield. And, how can you not sort of match that intensity? And no, he's not the most skilled player on the Penguins roster. No, he's not the best skater. Sometimes he doesn't play in the top six, although right now he is. The line with him and Kenny Malkin and Carl Hagelin has been really good. But just what he brings, that uniqueness around the net, the touch, the sort of in your eyes, how much he annoys goaltenders, it's infectious. And this team misses him a lot when he's not there. We don't have many indications that this is going to be anything long-term, like Sullivan said as much last night, but they certainly need him back as soon as possible.
Jason Mackey is with us, covers the Pittsburgh Penguins for the Post Gazette. At JMackeyPG is how you follow him on Twitter. Evgeny Malkin scored the lone goal for the Pittsburgh Penguins Saturday night against the New Jersey Devils. He is on some kind of run. I mean, he's not the only reason for the Penguins having a good 2018 so far, but he's an absolute monster out on the ice.
He really is, and he kind of joked after Friday's game against Washington, something about puck luck, and he put the puck off the defenseman's skate and it goes in. But I don't know. You have to work and you have to be good to make your luck, I believe. And that line, like I said earlier, with Hagelin and Hornquist has really worked. And we've seen him with the two Swedes earlier on, and it didn't really click. But the last time they've gone together, Mike Sullivan kind of pulled Malkin aside and said, basically, hey, dude, shoot the puck. You need to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of firing it. And Malkin, to his credit, has been. And it's been going in. They talk, over and over about how he doesn't use his shot enough. And getting them away from Phil Kessel has been a good thing. Nothing against Phil, but enabled Gino to be a little bit more aggressive. And right now he's just in some kind of zone. I think, goals in 4 straight, 8 total during that span, scored again last night. He's being aggressive with the shot. It's working out. But really, all of the Penguin stars, like I said earlier, Sidney Crosby didn't have a point last night, but he's been locked in. Phil Kessel still has been their best and most consistent player. When those three guys are producing the way they are, it's really tough to beat this team.
Yeah, and since you mentioned the name of Phil Kessel, he is currently sitting second in the NHL point standings, just 3 behind Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, I think it would be phenomenal for Phil Kessel to win the scoring title, but I'm not sure that he'd like that much attention, and I think he's okay with being second.
Oh, he really is. I truly believe if you would ask Phil Kessel like where his points stack up with the rest of the league, he would have no clue. He would have no idea. And it's also something, too. I mean, technically, Phil Kessel is a third-line player in Pittsburgh. And he's playing with two guys in Riley Sheahan and Jake Gensel that are probably non-traditional fits for him, but it's gotten better. Sheahan, before last night, I think it had points in 4 straight, something like that. But he's developed a little bit more of a comfortability playing with Phil. And Phil isn't the easiest player to play with. You know, it's not just because he kind of does things in a unique way. He's a demanding line mate, and I think he'll admit that, how he wants the puck, how he wants his line mates to play. It's a little bit quirky, but he just wants things his own way. And Sheahan has kind of adjusted to that. But, you know, to Phil's credit, he's just been so consistent night in and night out. And, you know what you're going to get from him. You're not going to get a lot of blocked shots or banging in the corners, but he's going to score, he's going to produce points, he's going to shoot the puck, he's going to beat goaltenders, and it's that instant source of offense that has been really good for the Penguins and carried them at times when their other stars haven't been there.
When the Penguins, goes back a few weeks, but when the Penguins were kind of struggling a little bit still to find themselves, some were suggesting or alleging that the Penguins may consider trading Chris Letang because they were able to win the Stanley Cup without him last season. I don't think anything like that is going to happen, and I think Chris Letang is going to be an important part of the Pittsburgh Penguins going forward this season and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when that all came out. I wasn't the one who wrote it. If anything, I had written that, if they were going to trade Letang's camp had no clue about that, and that would be awful strange for a player of his stature. And I know that when that talk started to pick up, Jim Rutherford, for one, was none too happy. And he started talking to all the beat guys. And, I don't think Jim would mind if I shared this now, but just sort of saying, I wouldn't be waiting around for the press release. We're not trading Letang. And Jim's very straight with us, on the record, off the record. Very good to deal with from the general manager standpoint. So, yeah, they're not trading Letang. He hasn't had an ideal start to the season. He will admit that. They will admit that. I do think he's on track to get better, but I think it's also easy to forget. I wrote this piece around the All-Star game, how difficult a position Letang plays, how sort of feel-related an offensive defenseman's role can be. And Letang just hasn't had that. He had 8 months off. He didn't skate much in the summer. They had a brutal start to the season, and he's had some issues coming back. And, I do think it's rounding into form. And as long as he stays healthy, I really don't have any questions whether Letang's going to be okay down the stretch. I think it's just been a rockier start than we've become accustomed to seeing from him. And they're sure not trading him, I'll say that.
That was an asinine suggestion, and we'll just leave it at that. Now, the goaltending situation, Matt Murray's the guy, of course. I think it's been interesting how the Pens have shuttled Casey DeSmith and Tristan Jarry back and forth. I believe they just recalled Jarry and sent DeSmith down this weekend. I'm not sure how that's going to play out going forward.
Well, I don't think they are either, and I don't think they're worried about determining how it's going to play out. I mean, the one thing that they know is Matt Murray's the number one. And another thing they know is that they don't want to, ride him till the wheels fall off. And I don't think Matt Murray is injury prone, but I also know that he hasn't played a stretch of games, outside of the past 2 postseasons without getting hurt. And even, last postseason, they had the injury before the whole thing started. So they don't want to overwork Murray is what I'm trying to say. And they need DeSmith or Jarry, doesn't matter who it is, to come in there and give them a split. DeSmith was hot for a little bit. His past 2 games, I think he's given up 6 goals on 64 shots, something like that. But Tristan went down to the AHL and has played really, really well. I know I was in Jersey last night, but the night before that I went to Wilkes-Barre to check out his game and their team and whatever, and was totally impressed by what Jarry did. He can play a really quiet game, sort of like Matt Murray, and it seems like he's kind of got his form back. So that's the way they're going to play this thing with their two netminders. You know, whoever is the hotter backup is going to get the opportunity to play, and right now it looks like that's Tristan Jarry. So Matt will get the starter share, but that backup guy will certainly play as well.
Hey, one more quick goaltending question before I let you go. This Tuesday, Vegas Golden Knights arrive in Pittsburgh, and I suspect the guy at the other end is going to be Marc-Andre Fleury in the starter's net. That's going to be some kind of evening to be a part of.
Boy, wouldn't it be a nice move or a mean move or something by Gerard Gallant to be starting now for the Subban? I don't think he'll get away with that. Fleury is one of the greatest. I talked to him on the phone last night in Jersey, like a little during the first period. What a wonderful man, a great goaltender, one of the most beloved players in Penguins franchise history. That place is going to go nuts. He even admitted to me, like, he's worried that he's going to be crying during the tribute video, but just a special, special human being.
Yeah, I can believe it. Jason Mackey covering the Penguins for the Pittsburgh Post Gazette at JMackeyPG. Great stuff, Jason. Appreciate the time as always, and hope we can do it again soon.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Jason Mackey covering the Pittsburgh Penguins. That is going to be some night in Pittsburgh when Marc-Andre Fleury comes back, when he skates out onto the ice. The ovation's going to be sensational. There will be a tribute video, of course, and I don't know how he's going to kind of contain himself to focus, because he does come across as quite an emotional player, and that's been to his benefit. And I'm glad Jason also squashed all that stupidity about Chris Letang getting traded by the Pittsburgh Penguins. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports. First hour is screaming by. Lots to get into from games last night. We'll look ahead a little bit to the 3 on the afternoon matinee schedule, some upcoming games this week, and much more. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet will join us later on in the program. Steve Laidlaw with the Fantasy 5 as well. Hashtag Fantasy 5. Goalie interference may come up again as well. I'm pretty sure that topic's not done with for quite some times in terms of NHL discussion. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, back after the break. So you had to get groceries, take your daughter to dance class, and a pipe burst in the kitchen. You missed Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. No problem. All of our shows are available as a podcast right after the show airs, so you can listen when life gets in the way of hearing us live. Subscribe through iTunes and get alerts as soon as the podcast is available, or go to our website, hockeyunfiltered.com, and listen. Plus, check out the other cool stuff, the Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis podcast. Subscribe now through iTunes. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Nova Product Design is designed for manufacturing. Nova Product Design can get the job done with mechanical and industrial design. Nova Product Design is also fully functional for laser cutting, water jet cutting, plating, coatings, and more. Nova Product Design, innovative design, and the latest technologies. Nova Product Design can design, build, and test any required types of prototypes and beta units. Visit NovaProductDesign.com. We're looking for your Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day nominations every Saturday. Now you can send them through Instagram. Use the hashtag HUDogoftheDay. Send us a photo of your dog on Twitter or Instagram to nominate them as the HU Dog of the Day. Include your name, the dog's name, and any other cool details you want. We choose a winner and add them to the Dog of the Day gallery on our website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. Hashtag HU Dog of the Day. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis Sunday edition continues up to the top of the hour. We'll talk about some of the games from last night. In hour number 2, Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada will join us. Steve Laidlaw coming up as well with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, at Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles to follow us. Don't forget, you can check out our podcast, subscribe through iTunes. It's available through iHeartRadio on the Hockey Unfiltered app as well. And that includes our Little Saturday podcast. They drop on Wednesday afternoon. It's a little bit of weekend in the middle of the week. That's why we call it the Little Saturday podcast. Just kind of keeping the conversation going. So there's always some interesting things going on in the National Hockey League, some topical stories. So we have a little podcast, the Little Saturday podcast that drops on Wednesday afternoon. Check out our Facebook page as well. Bunch of games on Saturday had interesting twists and turns. We were just talking with Jason Mackey from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette about the Pens and the Devils. They had one of the, well, they're all questionable now, goaltender interference calls that players were skating by, and Keith Kincaid was contacted, looked like he got clipped with a stick. He went down in a heap, and Sidney Crosby, who's been sniffing around for goal number 400 for a while, he fires the puck from the corner, bounces it off Keith Kincaid's melon and in, and everybody thinks, oh, that's goal 400, except no, goaltender interference, disallowed goal. I think it's the right call. Detroit in Florida last night, there's a bump in front of the net. Peter Mrazek goes down in a heap. It was a light brush with Jonathan Huberdeau. There was not a lot of contact. Peter Mrazek was selling it a little bit, but the puck went in. It was still loose. Jonathan Huberdeau tapped it in. He's awarded a goal. They review on video. It stands up. That goal is allowed. Peter Mrazek freaks out. He's firing the expletives left and right. Jeff Blashill is going out of his mind on the bench. He's standing up on the bench, waving his arms. He gets tossed from the game. I mean, there's 9 seconds left or something like that. But that's the confusing and difficult part about goaltender interference. I don't think we're any closer to getting a resolution, but we need more information. We need more clarity. We need announcers that know the rules when they're trying to explain to the fans that are listening or watching on television. But players are confused by it. Why was this one allowed and this one not allowed? Let's have some video examples of what's going on and what is allowed, why rulings were made. Again, I'll refer you back to our conversation on yesterday's program. You can check it out in our podcast. Josh Smith from scoutingtherefs.com was with us. We went through a number of scenarios and explained why the rule was applied in such a fashion. Now, there's always going to be people that disagree with the rule, and especially a ruling if it goes against your team. That's one thing. But at least let's have some clarity and some information and explanation. Got all these great videos on player discipline and suspensions, whether it's a fine or whether it's a suspension from the Department of Player Safety. Let's put that video department to work. Let's educate the fans. Players are confused. Coaches are confused. Help them in the process too, but also include your enormous fan base because they've got to understand what's going on as well. If there's confusion and gray area, that just makes the problem worse. Philip Forsberg and the Nashville Predators looks like he might be facing some discipline after a hit last night on Jimmy Vesey. Vesey was coming around the net. He dished the puck off at the last minute, and Forsberg was approaching him and tried to minimize the contact and kind of stuck his keister out to hit him with his back as opposed to going head on with a shoulder. And Vesey had his head down and impacted Forsberg, had kind of a cut lip or mouth or something. There was no penalty called on the play. I think it's debatable whether or not it was interference. I watched it a bunch of times. I didn't think it was a penalty. Sometimes players get injured. The other play that I thought would be getting a hearing from the Department of Player Safety was on Alexei Amelin, who crunched Mark Stahl into the boards. Stahl was pursuing a puck. He was kind of crouched down low to play the puck. Wasn't interference. But Amelin, in his own way, used his big body. He didn't stick his forearm out, but he kind of led with his forearm, and that contacted Mark Stahl in the head. I thought it was a headshot. After watching it a few times, the referee in the opposite corner would have been difficult to see, but
I thought it was certainly worthy of a penalty for boarding. You decide whether it's 2, 5, 10, etc. But because there was no penalty called, I thought it was certainly worthy of a phone call and a conversation with the Department of Player Safety. Apparently, they haven't seen that way because it was not a hit from behind. He didn't lead with an elbow. The forearm did appear to be the first point of impact. Perhaps not the first point, but in addition to the full body contact, there was the forearm into the head of Mark Stahl. That seemed to make it worthy of a discussion with the player and the Department of Player Safety. Apparently not. Philip Forsberg is having a hearing. It'll happen today, and there will be a decision about the discipline. I suspect he's getting a couple of games because there was an injury on the play. There was an injury on the play with Alexei Emelin and Mark Stahl as well. I thought that one was worse. I thought that one was worthy of discussion of supplemental discipline, a game or two. The Forsberg hit didn't strike me as dirty. Forsberg was committed to the hit. He was coming around the opposite side of the net. Vesey had his head down. He had the puck, dished it off at the last second, and Forsberg attempted to minimize the contact. I didn't think it was late enough to be interference. I'm interested to hear what the interpretation and the discussion is from the Department of Player Safety. But the Nashville Predators rolled up on the New York Rangers last night, coming up with a nice victory. And that New York Rangers team, Henrik Lundqvist, you could hear the frustration in his voice after. It's like, we got to be better. Starts with every individual. He said, including himself, I've got to be better. Everybody's got to look at themselves. They've got to be better. But at this point in the season, with the New York Rangers on the outside of the playoffs, the New York Islanders picking up points last night in their victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets, are they anything but sellers at this point? I think you got to look at guys like Rick Nash, Michael Grabner, maybe some others, and the New York Rangers have to be considering, you know what? This is not going to happen for us this year. That's a hard realization, but that's one I think that they are almost at the point of saying this needs to be our course of action. Maybe it's going to take the Rangers saying that before other teams will finally wake up and realize that. Maybe they're just holding off, but teams like Detroit, teams like Florida, they're not making the playoffs this year. And they just keep dancing around. Out west, I'm almost at that point. I said this yesterday. I'm pretty much at that point with Chicago. I think they're running out of games. They got 30 games left, and they need nearly 30 points. That's a big ask when you got Anaheim, Calgary, and Colorado ahead of you, and they're not in the playoffs. You got to catch a Minnesota or a Dallas or somebody like that. I think Chicago is almost at that state too. Oh yes, things can change. And we'll hear that phrase over the next couple of weeks. Well, as we get closer to the deadline, we'll be making our decisions. In some cases, the decision has been made for you. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Hour number 2 coming up. Sportsnet's Kyle Bukauskas will join us. Stephen Laidlaw will be with us and have the Fantasy 5 as well. Hashtag Fantasy 5. Much more to come right after the break.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Look, we know it happens. Life gets in the way and sometimes you can't catch the live edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. But we've made it easy for you to catch up on the show you might have missed. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis is available as a podcast on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Blog Talk Radio. You don't want to miss an episode. If you missed the live show, check out the podcast. Don't miss any shows. There's a test coming up later. Subscribe now. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Use the code Get the Savings. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis listeners save with Seat Giant and the promo code TODD. That's TODD at SeatGiant.com. Just log on to SeatGiant.com to find the best tickets to NHL games, concerts, or whatever you want and save. Use the promo code TODD. That's TODD when you check out and you save. Canadian listeners can save at SeatGiant.ca. That's SeatGiant.com and .ca. Cutting-edge design for manufacturing, Nova Product Design. Industrial design, mechanical engineering and design. Nova Product Design provides experienced design for parts and assemblies, manufacturing, assembly, and serviceability. From plastic parts to sheet metal forming, mold and tool design, injection molding, and more. Nova Product Design. Visit novaproductdesign.com to learn more.
This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis.
Hour number 2, get you set for afternoon action in the NHL. Everything wraps up early because everybody's focused on a football game, commercials, halftime show. I think they'll mention the whole wardrobe malfunction thing when Justin Timberlake was on before. I don't think so either. Coming up in hour number 2, Bukauskas from Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada will join us. He was at the Bruins and Leafs game on Saturday night. I got a bunch of questions about the game and a bunch about other things as well that occurred and took place at the game that I have for Kyle. So we'll get into that. And of course, it being Sunday, it's our regular visit with our friend Steve Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com, with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, help for you and your fantasy hockey pool. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis every Saturday and Sunday, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com. We're streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app. Oh, it's a busy day. It's a busy day because it was a super busy Saturday. There's afternoon action, then everybody gets a break and relaxes. But we're all still gnashing our teeth over this whole goaltender interference. Nobody knows how to strictly define it because the interpretations are different. We see plays on one night to the next or one game to the next, and everybody says, well, this is goaltender interference. How come this isn't goaltender interference? It's a PR information and explanation problem. That's the difficult part about it. I'll encourage you one more time to go and check out our segment from Saturday's program with Josh Smith from scoutingtherefs.com. We went through a bunch of different scenes. My fingers are crossed that one day analysts and announcers that cover the National Hockey League will learn what the rules are and how they're implemented. There were a few instances on Saturday night. I'm just shaking my head. I can't believe that those words are coming out of your mouth because they're wrong. Oh, the league made the call on that goalie interference. That's what the coach is upset about. Well, it was the referees that made the call because the referees call goaltender interference. I don't know if the referees can consult on this. I don't know the protocol. Maybe you should find out. And yes, they can. Those huddles that they have, often in the penalty crease, that's what they're doing. It's remarkable. But hockey coverage on radio or television, it presents unique challenges. It presents unique opportunities. And I've been thinking about this idea for a while. And I think it's something that we're missing out on and something that needs to be looked at. It's a different game. It's unlike doing any other, because the players change so quickly, and whether you're on offense or defense changes so quickly. It's faster than basketball. It's way different than baseball, way different than football. The pace of the game is so much faster than any of those other sports. Those are the challenges. It's difficult and hard to keep up with sometimes because of the action. It's constantly flowing and in constant movement, and difficult for play-by-play people sometimes. I've raved about Mike Emmerich on this program. I love listening to Mike Emmerich call games. A couple of times he's joined us on the program. It's been sensational. I'm really liking John Forsland and him getting more work on NBCSN as well. But it's difficult in terms of the analysts sometimes. First of all, they got to know the rules, and it's different from national to local broadcast. If you're watching your team broadcast, their mission is completely different. They are selling you the team. They are telling you about the great team that you have. But more on national broadcast, the approach is different. It has to be different because you don't have one home team that you were rooting for and cheering for. Local broadcast, everything your team does is great. Everything the opponent does is bad. That's how the presentation is put forth. But one area that I think has really been lacking on the national scale, when the audience is biggest, when you're trying to educate and teach fans about the game, trying to get more attention on the game, you're not skewing it towards one audience in particular, is a big name analyst. A big name, elite player, highly skilled, highly talented analyst that has achieved success. It just doesn't seem to be of significance. Everyone working on national broadcast now has been out of the league for a long time, and in some cases, decades. And I think that's significant as well. Because of their experience, their expertise, it isn't as current as it needs to be or as it should be. The game has evolved so much, not just in the last 10 years, but in the last 20 years, and that's how long some of these analysts have been out of the game. More speed, more skill, more finesse, as opposed to the how to slow down and how to defend. It's become more of a speed, more of an offense, more of a skill game. And I'll blame this not as much on the analysts as I will on the so-called smart executives who make these hires. Because for so many years, they have looked at marginal players, fourth line players, backup goaltenders who have minimal talent compared to other NHLers, but they're a personality. Never mind that they don't have the capacity to play the game at an elite level as the top players do. But, they got a self-deprecating sense of humor. They talk about their skills and saying, if I had only made saves, I'd still be in the league and stuff like that. They're entertaining, and they present a viewpoint for the average fan. Well, that shouldn't be the approach. When it's the league, when it's national, when it's the biggest broadcasters, they should be providing knowledge and information to everyone listening and watching to help them understand, to help them learn and understand the process of what the elite level talented players, because those are the ones that are the most popular. Those are the ones you should be focusing on. But if you don't have that capacity, boy, that's a lot tougher. You want to generate more interest. Sell your stars, sell your game. Sell the greatest skill, the greatest talent. Fill the pool with water and let all the swimmers rise. A bunch of TV skills, they can be taught. Broadcasting skills, to an extent, can be taught. Here's the mic switch. Push this one, it goes on. Push this one, it goes off. Try not to talk when the play-by-play guy is talking. Those can be taught. Wait for a break in the action before you talk. When a guy goes in on a breakaway, maybe that's not the point to start talking. Let the play-by-play guy handle that. Try not to swear the way you did when you were out on the ice. But I want the highest elite level talent to be the analysts in the game. But the smart TV guys, they got it backwards. Let's get this guy. He's kind of funny. He sat in the press box so much, he must have seen a lot of things. Or he sat on the end of the bench so much, he's probably seen a lot of things, and he could talk about that. He's got a good sense of humor. But what you get is, they got to be ready to start on time. They got to get pucks in deep. And we got to get in on the forecheck and create some chances. Got to play a full 60 minutes is another one of my favorites. You can get the cliches anywhere, but you can't get that elite, super skilled level analyst. Who's the best television analyst in football? Tony Romo, former Dallas Cowboys quarterback, who's not even a full year out of the game. He sees so much on his broadcast, and he shares it, brings you into the game. This is what this team is doing. Here's what I think the offense can do. And again, football and hockey are different, but you can teach the skills of when to jump in. But seeing what's going on, that's the harder part. That's what the elite, skilled, talented players have that we're not getting. Hockey's different. It's fluid. It's constant. But if you have an elite, skilled player as an analyst, they will be able to find their way in, to drop in those little nuggets of knowledge, the same way they did when they were going in on a 2-on-1 and finding the best opportunity to score. Game's pretty different now. But who you got for national analysts? Mike Milbury. How many decades has he been out of the game? Ed Olczyk hasn't played for 20 years. This is not a personal gripe about either one. This is just, they've been removed from the game and the on-ice action for an awfully long time. There's a few Canadian ones that are really good. I like Mike Johnson. Ray Ferraro is good because he's honest and open. He will give you an honest assessment of what a player is doing, whether they have it, whether they don't, whether it was the right play, whether it was a wrong play, and we don't get enough of that. And I'm talking about game broadcast too. I'm not talking about studio work because games are way more difficult. Working in a studio, you got the whole 20-minute period to watch and say, you know what? I like that highlight. I can talk about that highlight in 15 minutes from now. When you're doing a game, it is happening right in front of you, and you've got to be fast and you've got to be smart to get in and get out and make your point. The other issue is they won't pay the stars the big money, because that's what it's going to take to get the top-level elite talent to give up golf 4 or 5 days a week and come and work on NHL hockey broadcasts. The fourth-line players, marginal players, journeyman backup goaltenders, they didn't make the giant dollars. The elite, skilled players are making the big money. Why would they give that up? But wouldn't you want to hear the perspective of the best players in the league as your analyst? Who are the analysts in the NFL? Tony Romo, Troy Aikman. Smart guys, smart players, smartest players on the field when they were out there. What do we get? Here's backup goalie who played parts of 5 seasons with 8 different teams. Wouldn't you want to hear from Nick Lidstrom on how to defend Sidney Crosby since he played against him? Danny Briere, Eric Cole, that's a tier down, but that's skilled, talented players. And those are players that are just recently out of the league. Brad Richards, skilled player, talented player, Stanley Cup winner, just a few years out of the league. Timo Solani, Paul Kariya. Paul Kariya's been out a little bit longer. But that's the elite skill level player. What we get now is way too much emphasis on how a goaltender made a save, because you got so many backup goaltenders. Some of them know the rules, some of them don't. Look at that, square to the puck, made the stop. I want the emphasis to be on offense. I want the emphasis to be on skill and talent. It's an opportunity to educate your fans, to grow the game, get more fans. That's where the analysts should be coming from. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Todd at hockeyunfiltered.com is the email. Busy program ahead. Before the hour is done, Steve Laidlaw will be here with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Help for you and your fantasy hockey pool. Still some stories from games last night that we haven't gotten into. We'll squeeze in as much as we can. We'll talk about the 3 that are up this afternoon on Super Bowl Sunday. In our next segment, Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, will join us. He was working the Bruins and Maple Leafs game on Saturday night, and I have some questions about that game for Kyle. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, back after the break.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. Cutting-edge design for manufacturing, Nova Product Design. Industrial design, mechanical engineering and design. Nova Product Design provides experienced design for parts and assemblies, manufacturing, assembly, and serviceability. From plastic parts to sheet metal forming, mold and tool design, injection molding, and more. Nova Product Design. Visit novaproductdesign.com to learn more. So you had to get groceries, take your daughter to dance class, and a pipe burst in the kitchen. You missed Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. No problem. All of our shows are available as a podcast right after the show airs, so you can listen when life gets in the way of hearing us live. Subscribe through iTunes and get alerts as soon as the podcast is available, or go to our website, hockeyunfiltered.com, and listen. Plus, check out the other cool stuff. The Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis podcast. Subscribe now through iTunes.
This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. It's the Sunday edition. We're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, at Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter and Instagram handles. Powered by Primetime Radio. We're at hockeyunfiltered.com, streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app. Podcasts available through subscription via iTunes, through iHeartRadio, and they're all up on the Hockey Unfiltered app as well. Please make sure to check out our website. You can check out the Dog of the Day gallery and some other stuff up there as well. Also up on our Facebook page. We're going to have to push Kyle Bukauskas back a few minutes. He'll join us just past the bottom of the hour and before the top of the hour as well. Steve Laidlaw coming up, managing editor of DauberHockey.com, with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5, help for you and your fantasy hockey pool. I'm doing my best, but it's not going to be my year. And that's what you got to do. Got to go through the rest of the year. You can learn from it, just like the NHL teams do. Find out who's on your roster, see what they're giving you, come up with some new ideas and a new approach for next season. There are teams that are going to be starting to go through that process in the NHL. Talked about the Rangers a little bit after their loss to the Nashville Predators on Saturday night. They were very lackluster against the Maple Leafs. They had more energy in spurts against the Nashville Predators, but still not enough. That Nashville's a good team. Nashville is a good team. In a tough Central Division, they're a good team. Rangers lost a couple of players to injury on Saturday night as well. I thought that it would be Alexei Emelin who was getting a call from player safety, but it's not. Alexei Emelin kind of creamed Mark Stahl into the boards. I thought he hit him in the head. I thought it was with a forearm. There was no penalty on the play. Then Philip Forsberg laid into Jimmy Vesey as he was coming around the net. Vesey had his head down, dished the puck off at the last second, and, well, the collision ensued. Philip Forsberg tried to minimize it. He turned around. He wasn't leaning in. He was trying to slow down so that there wasn't as big an impact. But he got a call from player safety. He's going to have a hearing today, and I suspect he's going to get something because he was not penalized on that play as well. I didn't think it was interference, but I don't know. 3 games on the Sunday schedule, all afternoon action, everybody getting focused on the game on Sunday night. Vegas Golden Knights continue their 6-game road trip. They're Washington, take on the Caps, kind of a homecoming for George McPhee. Used to be the GM of the Caps. Knights look kind of gassed in their last contest against the Minnesota Wild. They look like they were a little spent on Friday night. Caps got rousted by the Pittsburgh Penguins the same night. Braden Holtby got yanked after letting in 6. It's going to be Philip Grubauer in net for the Washington Capitals. Marc-Andre Fleury in goal for the Vegas Golden Knights. Going to be an interesting one. I'm interested to see how the Knights do over the next week or 2 or 3, how they approach the trade deadline. George McPhee is maintaining the poker face saying, well, we're not sure what we're going to do yet. Oh, you've had some thoughts and some ideas about it. You have given it some thought. You're just not sharing it with anyone yet. If anything, they will be buyers more so than sellers. But they've got some assets if they want to dispose. Sens are in Montreal, second of back-to-back afternoon games for both of these teams. Sens scored a shootout victory over the Philadelphia Flyers on Saturday. Ottawa was up 2. Philly came back in the third period, tied it up late. Good call by Dave Haxtell to get Alex Lyons out of there and put Michael Neuwirth in for the third period. Kind of charged up his team. Nolan Patrick scored a late goal. That was a good move. Montreal scored early, scored often against the Anaheim Ducks, who never really looked too enthused in the early going. Kind of picked it up later and peppered a bunch of shots at Anthony Niemi, who made, I think it was like 43 saves or something. So he held his own later on. But Montreal jumped on them early. Jonathan Drouin is a game-time decision. He got hit in the ribs with a puck yesterday. Mike Condon will be in goal for the Ottawa Senators. I'm suspecting it's Carey Price today. San Jose is in Carolina. Snapped a 4-game losing skid, 3-1 over Columbus on Friday. Hurricanes had a nice game against Montreal on Thursday. Couldn't back it up on Friday. Red Wings scored 4 on them on Friday night. Scott Darling, holding his glove up, watched the puck go over his left shoulder several times. He looks paralyzed out there. He looks like he is tentative and unsure. On a 2-on-1, he looks like he doesn't trust his defenseman. He looks like he has to play both the pass and the shot because he doesn't trust his defenseman. And I'm not sure why, because Carolina's got a decent defense. But he looks tentative and not very confident in what he's doing. So I would expect Cam Ward today. But it was good for San Jose to snap that 4-game losing skid. They had lost 3 games since Joe Thornton went out of the lineup, played their 4th and won that one. I love what new Hurricanes owner Tom Dundon is doing as far as this team as well. He is lighting a fire under that organization and making an impression in his first few days as the new owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. This past Tuesday, okay, it's cold and not very pleasant in Carolina. The Ottawa Senators are in town, not the biggest draw in Carolina on a Tuesday night because they're not having a great season. So he invited people who were seated in the upper part of the building, come on down. If there's seats available, come on down. Sit here in the bottom. Let's create a nicer atmosphere. Let's get a little something going. Let's give everybody a bit of a break. I know you only paid for the cheap seat. We'll let you sit in the good seat for this one only. He may do it again in the future, depending on the night, depending on availability. There were a lot of no-shows on Tuesday, so there were seats available. I thought it was a good move. I thought it was a really good move. It's not an everyday thing. It's not a long-term plan, because that's not a recipe for success. But he realizes that he's got to do something different. He's got to give people a reason to go. This is not the best thing to foist on your season ticket holders either, who have paid for the full season and have paid the big dollars. He understands that, has acknowledged that, and is trying to work something out so they get a little bit of a benefit as well. If there are no-shows, somebody sits in their seat, they get a little something kicked back. I'm liking what he's doing. He is making some noise. He is getting some attention. And he's trying to give people a reason to come to the games. And that is the correct approach. There are franchises in numerous leagues that say, well, we need more tickets sold. The NHL is one example, but other franchises do it too. We need more tickets. We need people to come out and support our team. Ottawa got stirred up about this around the holidays when they had the outdoor game and Eugene Melnyk was making comments. But other franchises have done it too in the NHL. What are you going to do for us? We need you to support our team. We need ticket sales. If you don't support us, if you don't come out to the games, what's going to happen? Tom Dundon is approaching it from the opposite direction. His approach is we have to give people a reason to come to our games. We have to give them a compelling reason to leave their homes, pay their money, come into our building and watch our team. And that is the right recipe. That's the recipe for long-term success. Guilting people into spending some money and buying tickets. Okay, I feel an obligation. The franchise has been part of the city for a while, so I'll show my support and come out once to a game with a few people or the family. That is a short-term recipe. Giving people a compelling reason to go. Winning is part of it. Having a successful franchise is just part of it, but having a great experience in the building is the other part of it. Because ticket prices aren't going up in the future, or aren't going down in the future. They're only going up. You have to give people a compelling reason to keep coming back, to keep paying money, to watch your team, to be a part of your team. Winning, sure. But there's only one team that wins the Stanley Cup every year. Only half the league makes the playoffs. And you can't have the other half of the league with half full buildings. You have to give them a compelling reason to come out. And Tom Dundon is trying to do that. He's starting to make things happen with the Carolina Hurricanes. And I'm liking that. Peter Kamanos was sitting on his hands for a few years. It's like, okay, I'll spend this much money. Here's what your salary structure will be, but I'm not going over and above this. And I'm not going to have the biggest scouting department, and I'm not going to have the biggest game day staff, and I'm not going to have the biggest office staff. Because he was in the process of transitioning out of that franchise. I understand that. But the man he sold the majority interest to, who will acquire more of the franchise going forward, is creating the right atmosphere. And he's also creating a better atmosphere for his team and his players. He wants them to have all the facilities they need to be successful. Do we need more scouts to find us more players? Let's get them. Do we need to change things in the building to make it more fan-friendly, to make it more enjoyable for people who do come out and participate in our games and be part of our product? Let's do that. Part of that is trying to expedite a brand new scoreboard for Carolina. They don't exactly have one of the newest, one of the nicest, because they're getting bigger and better in buildings around the National Hockey League. So he's trying to expedite that process. Now there's government officials and a political process that you have to go through. He's trying to work through and negotiate and make that happen as quickly as he can. Yeah. I like what he's doing with this franchise so far. It's not coming in and disrupting, but coming in and learning, finding out what the needs are, assessing them quickly and efficiently, and then addressing them in just as quick a fashion. You know what? We don't have a good enough game day experience. Part of that is our scoreboard needs to be updated. And that's a multi-million-dollar investment. He's ready to do it. Scouting staff, office staff, hockey staff is not that big. He's prepared to make investments to help grow that staff so they can find more players. Investing in the building, giving fans a reason to come out to the games. Good for him. Now, Carolina, you got to do your part too. I mean, both the team and the fans. As he's doing this, participate as well. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles. Up to the top of the hour, Stephen Laidlaw will be with us with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. And in the next segment, Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada will join us. I got some questions about the game last night. A few of them have to do with the game, and a few of them have to do with a couple other things as well. We'll talk to Kyle. Coming up, Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis right after the break.
There's special savings for Hockey Unfiltered listeners with our new ticket partner, Seat Giant. And Canadian fans can also purchase in Canadian dollars. Go to SeatGiant.ca, find the tickets you're looking for. Doesn't matter if it's NHL games, concerts, or any other event. You get a special discount with the promo code TODD. That's Todd with 2 Ds. Just enter the code, get the discount, you save. That's simple. Save on your next ticket purchase with Hockey Unfiltered and Seat Giant. The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Search engine optimization is the key to success for your online business. It can be the key to success for any business. 1-844-SEO-LEAD is the number to call to get your business at the top of all searches. An official partner of Google, they have the tools necessary to make your business the one people notice first. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now you can nominate your dog or any dog you love as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day through Instagram. Every Saturday, Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis will take your nominations for the Dog of the Day. Use the hashtag #HUDogoftheDay. Send us a photo with the dog on Twitter or Instagram to nominate your dog. We choose a winner at the end of the show, and your dog will be recognized in the HU Dog of the Day gallery on our website and Facebook page. Hashtag #HUDogoftheDay. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more.
This is Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. It's the Sunday edition, flying by here to the top of the hour. Afternoon hockey on Super Bowl Sunday. 3 games on the schedule. It's the Vegas Golden Knights in Washington to take on the Caps, Ottawa Senators in Montreal to take on the Canadiens, and the San Jose Sharks taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. Those are the 3. That's all. Unlike the busy Saturday, including the Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leafs, Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet was working the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast last night. You can follow him on Twitter at SN Kyle Bukauskas, and he joins us now. Kyle, who forgot to turn on the light for your opening at the game last night? I'm turning on, I'm watching it, and I'm hardly seeing it.
The production truck afterwards. That was the best I looked all year, Todd. It was, I know, literally seconds before we were about to go on there, the light went off. But what do? You got to get through it. And anyway, so it was an interesting way to kick the night off. But certainly there were some bright lights as far as the interest level went around that matchup. I mean, here we are already in early February, and it's kind of being pegged as a playoff preview given the way the division's shaping up. And it was a good game, and I think a good lesson for those in the blue and white sweater to suggest that they have made some strides this year, but they're still not quite at the level of what the Bruins are playing right now. It's been really impressive what they've been able to do.
Yeah, let's talk first about the Maple Leafs. You're right. They'd won a couple of games. They had done it in impressive fashion, but I think there was a bit of an education, as you say, as to how far they still have to go in the learning process. And I think Mike Babcock understands that, but I'm not sure that fans and all the players do necessarily yet.
Yeah. Well, certainly everyone wants things now. Everyone wants things to happen so quickly. And in Toronto, and you look at the year that they had last year, and everything just seemed to go right for them. And it was such a good story, and the growth that we watched from that group in just 1 year, from all those guys going through the rookie years, and the expectation was now it's even going to be better working into the sophomore year, and there's been some learning curves along the way. And certainly from a fan's perspective, there was some frustrations over the last couple of months with line deployment and who's getting more minutes. We've talked at length about that, Todd, here on your program, but these last few games where Babcock had put some skilled players in positions to make some significant impacts over the Leo Komarovs and the Roman Polaks of the world, and it seemed like that was working there. And but by all means, they didn't play poorly by any stretch last night in Boston, but they weren't at the level that the Bruins are, and it's again they've got 30 some odd games here left for the regular season to find that next level, and they keep talking about a different level that they want to get to, but it certainly was a good kind of eye opener for everyone that watched there last night, and certainly for the players involved. You got a Bruins team that has not quite the same talent level of youth that the Maple Leafs have, but they've got some good young players that are insulated by some real good veteran leadership. I mean, Patrice Bergeron is putting on an incredible year. Brad Marchand, he still can't find a way to keep his nose clean. But when he is in the lineup, he is an absolutely relentless player offensively. That line is so good for them. They've got speed all throughout their forwards. Their defense is solid. Zdeno Chara still at this stage of his career played his 1400th career game last night, and he looks, incredibly serviceable back there for given the workload he's logged over the course of his career. And the Leafs just aren't there yet. So I know it's tough to be patient, and fans want their team to be there and to be able to compete with them. And certainly if they get into a 7-game series, it will be really interesting to watch how it kind of plays out. And you could certainly suggest it would be a series that would go games 6 or 7, but for now, that was a Bruins team that was a step ahead of them, and it was Babcock that made the note there at the end of the game. They were in a good spot after the first period, tied at 1. Although they weren't playing that great, they had a chance to push back, and they didn't push back, and the Bruins took over from there. They made the most of their power play opportunities. Toronto had a couple in the third, and they couldn't capitalize, and that was ultimately the game right there. So I think a good lesson for them, and yeah, certainly a reminder that there is some patience and some growing still to be had for this group down the last couple of months of the regular season.
And as for the Maple Leafs, a part of that growing process, I think, is, and something that Mike Babcock preaches, playing the full length of the ice, not being so focused on the offense. And in that regard, I don't think it's a bad thing for a player like Mitch Marner or William Nylander to spend a little time on the fourth line, because the defensive part of the game is more of a focus. And I don't think that's a bad thing in terms of the long-term success of the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the takeaway I took from, the last couple of weeks here, where he's moved those guys up the lineup and putting them in the situations that, fans and certainly, a number of people that cover the team have been going, yeah, why hasn't he been doing this from the beginning? But, I'm kind of with you there, Todd, where, they had to learn to play on both sides of the puck. And early on in the year, where they were just all thinking offense, then that was a good time for the coaching staff to rein them in and to put them in some situations like playing on the fourth line where they had to learn that, if you want to get some better minutes and to be in the situations where you think you deserve to be, you've got to learn to play defensively too. And they said over the last month where they weren't scoring as much, even the games that they were letting slip away late in the third period in overtime and what have you, Babcock kept relaying the message that he thought the team was playing well and thought they were playing well, playing solid defensively, and believed that things were going to come. And, maybe we just got to a point here in the last couple of weeks where he felt some of his younger guys that were having some issues defensively earlier on in the year had started to learn to play a little bit better on the other side of the puck. And there was that trust there to put them in situations where, everyone wants them to be. And certainly they fit where there's the better situation for them to max out their potential, if you will. And then you saw the games, earlier this week against the Islanders and the Rangers, and before the All-Star break in Dallas, and even in the second half of that game in Chicago. So there is some growth happening, and that has to be a positive for this hockey club. And yeah, I certainly see it that way too, where there was a learning process about playing defensively, before they were going to be handed keys to the convertible, if you will.
Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada is with us. Follow him on Twitter at SN Kyle Bukauskas. Maple Leafs fall to the Boston Bruins on Saturday night, and the Leafs and their fans got a little taste of some young defensive talent over the last few days as well. Justin Holl got into a couple of games, scored a couple of goals, and everybody thought, okay, here we go. Travis Dermott has also looked good, but I like, again, the way Mike Babcock is doing it. A little taste, a little bit of responsibility, but also understanding that there's still things to learn and still progress to be made.
Right. And so, you've got Justin Holl that's, had a really, really wonderful start to his NHL career. It's coming at age 26, but 2 goals in his first 2 games as a defenseman is really something to be proud of and to look back on with great fondness later on in life. And Travis Dermott now he's only 11 games into his NHL career, and that's a long way to go. Babcock again has pointed out it's anyone can come up, and they're going on adrenaline, and everyone's excited, and you get a couple of games in and you look really good, and then once the grind kind of settles in, and you're getting into these situations where you're playing up against the best players in the world night after night, and The travel kicks in and everything else that goes along with it. It's tough to do over the course of an entire season, and that's why those that are labeled the best, earn those titles, because they're able to handle the rigors of the pro level throughout the course of an entire season and through the playoffs. And so that's kind of going to be the test. It's been incredibly positive, particularly the way Dermott has played, because you just look at his hockey IQ and his willingness to not shy away from jumping up in the play. And there was one giveaway that he had there in his own zone last night, and he went back to the bench. You could see the conversation with him and the coaching staff, and then he went back right out there again, and he didn't look like he was scared or afraid to make another mistake, and he just went after and attacked it. I remember talking to him a couple of weeks ago. I asked him if he watches much video of himself, and he says, at this point, I don't watch a ton. Like, I prefer just to go out on the ice and kind of make my mistakes as I go and learn on the fly there. He felt that was much more advantageous to him, and certainly the NHL isn't quite the developmental league that the American League is, but he's a guy that's put in a situation where he's making the most of it. And you've got two guys that came back to the lineup last night, and Morgan Riley and Ron Hainsey, where some decisions had to be made as far as what the blue line was going to look like, and he forced the coaching staff to leave him in. So I think that's a huge positive for him, and certainly creates a great discussion as we look forward to the trade deadline, where a month ago I was thinking, well, the Leafs have to get a defenseman if they want a shot at really being a legitimate playoff team come April and May. And now with the emergence of him and just the reality, the things we're seeing now that suggest that, maybe this organization is a little more deeper on the back end than we initially thought. Perhaps that changes their thought process a little bit, but it certainly will be interesting, won't it, over the next few weeks, how they go about it and what potentially the Leafs do between now and the end of this month.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to watch for the Maple Leafs perspective over the next few weeks. I want to jump over and talk a little bit about Boston, because that team has been on some kind of roll over the last number of months. You mentioned Zdeno Chara earlier, game number 1,400 of his NHL career last night. And it looks like with young defensemen that he has been paired with, he's revitalized, and it looks like he will have no problem continuing, because I think his minutes are being managed in terms of how many he plays, but also the circumstances. He's not playing power play anymore.
Right. You've got some great puck movers, some great, blue liners with offensive instincts that just fit the role of those power play units so well, with Torrey Krug on the first unit and Charlie McAvoy, this 20-year-old sensation, on the second unit, who came back after missing 4 games with that procedure done to correct an irregular heartbeat. He came back last night and, had the unfortunate bounce go off his stick there on the lone Toronto goal, but certainly looked, extremely solid for the rest of the evening. And yeah, you've got that whole back end that can move the puck well. I mean, you can't, anyone you talk to there in that locker room, you ask about McAvoy and the glowing reviews that they give. And, Bergeron was saying last night how fantastic he's been and how different it is when he's on the ice as far as the transition game goes, because he just gets the puck up ice so quickly and gets them back on offense, and it just makes a team look so much faster when you're playing that way. And a couple of weeks ago, Zdeno Chara said that he's the future of the franchise going forward, and I think that's a pretty high praise from the current captain of the team to be saying that about a 20-year-old that's going through his first 4 year with the club. And again, you go back to their forwards, they seem really, really balanced right now. I think Jake DeBrusk is having a great year, and he's again insulated by a great center and David Krejci and Danton Heinen, who is right now up with the first line because of the Marchand suspension. But when Marchand's in the lineup, he's down with David Backes, who takes care of things defensively, Riley Nash, who's a serviceable third line center, and then the fourth line can skate. They can really skate. The Sean Corrales, the Noel Acharis of the world that can move the puck too, and they can really cause a lot of trouble for opposing teams when they try to match up, not so much match up against them, when they try to throw those guys over the ice and fourth line against fourth line, and you hope for a 50-50 split, and they're often pushing the pace on opponents more often than not. So it's really is something where it was right around this time a year ago that it was shortly after this time a year ago that Claude Julien got fired and Bruce Cassidy was brought in, and you look at how far they've come since then, and being a team that, 21 games here, Todd, they've got one regulation loss in 21 games, and only 4 other losses beyond 60 minutes over this stretch. So it's just a remarkable run for them, and Tuukka Rask hasn't lost in regulation since the end of November. It's just something that they've been on, and they've got themselves in such an enviable position, and certainly the fact that the rest of the division below Toronto in the Atlantic is so weak. They've locked themselves right into a playoff spot, and who's to say that they can't catch Tampa now if they keep going the way they are? It looks like Bergeron's going to lock up another Selke trophy, and with the way he's going, who knows? I mean, he may be a guy that deserves some hard consideration by the end of the year too, if things can keep trending the way they are. Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but they're a group that just seems to be firing on all cylinders, and they just seem to be having a whale of a time. And why wouldn't you? When you look at how fast they play, it just seems like a real good system, a real good group to be a part of. And I imagine, coming to the rink every day is a lot of fun for them right now. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, with no signs of slowing down, they look really good in every aspect of the game. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada. Hey, so they had a goat on a stuffed goat on the Zamboni in a Brady jersey last night. That was awesome, and also Rene Rancourt must be feeling it too, because he did the triple fist pump on the end of the national anthem. How cool was that? Have you got a Super Bowl pick for the big game, or are you going to be non-committal?
Oh boy. Well, you know what? I can't count out Brady and Belichick. I really can't. I think it's going to be the sixth ring for that dynasty there in New England. That city was obviously right fired up about the game here today, and it'll be interesting to watch. I mean, that Philadelphia defense has done some really good things this year, so we'll see what the Eagles can throw at Tom and the Patriots offense. But I'm taking New England. I think they can't be stopped again this year, Todd. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, fair bet. Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet Hockey Night in Canada, at SN Kyle Bukauskas on Twitter. Thanks for this, pal. I always appreciate it, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yes, looking forward to it, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. It's Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet. They have the stuffed goat on the Zamboni. It was awesome. And Rene Rancourt, who said this is it. He's cutting it off at the end of this season. No more anthems at the TD Garden. Did the triple fist pump after the anthems last night. That was big stuff. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handle. Stephen Laidlaw with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Help for you and your fantasy hockey pool coming up right after the break.
The best way to get set for the busy Saturday night of hockey is with Hockey Primetime. Beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern, host Connor McKenna whips you around the league for the latest stories and info leading up to the early game starts. Plus, he'll give his own spin on the biggest stories in the National Hockey League. Hockey Primetime with Connor McKenna. Sometimes serious, sometimes a little goofy, but always interesting. Listen live at hockeyprimetime.com, 5 p.m. Eastern every Saturday. Creativity and innovation are the hallmarks of Nova Product Design. Whether it's mechanical or industrial, cutting-edge technology and a commitment to excellence make Nova Product Design the company to choose. Prototypes and beta units are a Nova Product Design specialty. Striving for revolutionary new ideas and methods keep Nova Product Design at the forefront of innovation. Visit novaproductdesign.com and learn more. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Being on the World Wide Web is great. Being found is the tricky part. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization is the only way your business can get a leg up on the competition. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. For the necessary tools to make your business stand out in a crowded marketplace, 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Now it's even easier to nominate your dog as the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day. We do it every Saturday. Send us a photo on Twitter or now on Instagram with the hashtag HU Dog of the Day. We choose a winner every Saturday. That's simple. Now on Instagram or Twitter, send us the photo using the hashtag HU Dog of the Day, and your dog could be the one added to our gallery on the website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis, Sunday edition here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific at hockeyunfiltered.com, streaming live on the Hockey Unfiltered app, at Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, Twitter and Instagram handles. Lots of ground covered on today's show. Serious stuff with the interference, Department of Player Safety, some fun stuff as well. Good day today. Good couple of hours. And we'll wrap it up with our friend Stephen Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com, with this week's Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Everybody's always looking for help in the fantasy hockey pool. The trade deadline's not that far away. So Stephen joins us for his regular visit. Do you have a Super Bowl pick today, Steve, or are you just going to go with both wings and nachos?
Well, it seems like the favorite is the Eagles to cover the spread but lose the game. All right. Okay.
Well, so depending on how you're betting, then that betting is that? Yeah. Anyhow, depending on how you're betting, we'll see how that goes. All right. Let's get into this week's Fantasy 5. Name number 1, starting to get some production, starting to show why they acquired him, is Matt Duchene of the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, he's finally started to find his footing in Ottawa. He's got 11 points in his last 13 games, and I mean that team really hasn't been all that good. But outside of Mark Stone, no one has really been producing. But Stone's hurt right now, and suddenly Duchene is finally playing productively. So I think that the expectations we had when he first arrived, I think we can finally. We're finally seeing him fulfill those. So, I mean, it took 2 months to finally get there. But, Duchene is finally producing to the level expected. So he's on a lot of waiver wires. You could probably pick him up for a nice second half run. And, I mean, if he's not productive, you scuttle him back off.
Name number 2 on the Fantasy 5 from Stephen Laidlaw this week is defenseman Colin Miller. Always looking for defensive help. Why do you like Colin Miller?
He's on a blistering hot streak right now. 7 points in his last 6 games. It kind of comes and goes between him and Shea Theodore based on which power play unit is rolling. The Golden Knights, they kind of flip back and forth between their 2 power play units, split very evenly just in terms of talent and ice time. But right now it's the unit with Colin Miller on it that's producing like crazy with Perron and Neal and Hala, and he's on quite the hot streak. So certainly use him while he's hot, and then when he's not, maybe you switch back to the Shea Theodore option.
This is the Fantasy 5 with Stephen Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com. Hashtag Fantasy 5. Stephen Laidlaw, you can follow on Twitter at Steve Laidlaw. And name number 3 on the list comes from the San Jose Sharks. They're looking for offense, and Thomas Hertl is one of those providing it.
Yeah, I mean, last week we hyped up Kevin LeBanc, and he's certainly been productive for folks. So, pumped it myself for that one. And Hertl's also along for the ride on this. He's had great underlying numbers all season. He's fit in quite well alongside Logan Couture, and that trio is playing a lot together at even strength and on the power play. So, loads of power play time. We love that. He's starting to get some shot volume up and, quietly finally producing 7 points in his last 8 games. So the underlying numbers have been there. The production's finally matching. I think now's a good time to get in on Hertl.
4th member of Steve's Fantasy 5 for this week is Cam Atkinson of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's back from injury, and the Jackets are also happy to have him. Absolutely.
I mean, this season's been awful. There's no other way to describe it for Atkinson. People coming off of his breakout season last year, people were expecting another 60+ point season, but certainly he's struggled, and their power play has been awful. But over the last month or so, they've been clicking at a very high rate. And, suddenly that means points for guys like Atkinson. He's got 4 points in 4 games since returning from injury. I think that, the expectation for me coming into the season was probably he's going to score like 25 goals, 50 points. He's obviously not going to do that between injuries and his struggles, but he could score at that pace with a high shot volume. We love guys who shoot the crap out of the puck. He's one of those guys, right? So I think that the expectations that we had for him coming into the year, he can do that over the last few months.
We love guys that shoot the crap out of the puck, and we love when Steve mentions it. Name number 5 on the Fantasy 5 this week, hashtag Fantasy 5, always looking to provide a little goaltending boost if we can. And Peter Mrazek of the Detroit Red Wings is getting a little more time in net. He was a little ballistic last night when the goaltender interference call went against him, but he still played pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, goaltender interference is a whole another story. But Mrazek has he started 5 of the last 6 games for Detroit, and I don't know if this is a situation where they're showcasing him for trade. I know he's been shopped around quite a bit, and they exposed him in the expansion draft. They're probably not going to extend him a qualifying offer this summer as a restricted free agent, just because he's already he's on tap for $4 million this year. That might be a little bit too expensive for them. So if they're showcasing him for a trade, then he's a guy who could probably help a contender who's struggling in goal. And if not, and they're just trying to win some games, I mean, Detroit has managed to remain competitive despite the fact that, it's plainly obvious to everyone they're not a playoff team and haven't been all year. So either way, he's an under the radar type option for folks who are looking for a little productivity in net, whether this lasts for a couple of weeks or until the rest of the season remains to be seen. But certainly he's a guy who, up until last season, was one of the most promising young goaltenders in the league. And he fell off for about 1.5 years, but that doesn't mean the potential for him to play like a star isn't still there.
That's Steve Laidlaw, the managing editor of DobberHockey.com with the Fantasy 5, hashtag Fantasy 5. Follow Steve on Twitter at Steve Laidlaw. Good stuff as always, Steve. You have a great week, and we'll do it again next Sunday.
Hey, sounds great, Todd.
Stephen Laidlaw from DobberHockey.com. If you missed it, here one more time quickly, the Fantasy 5. Matt Duchene of the Ottawa Senators is named number 1. Colin Miller, defenseman for the Vegas Golden Knights, number 2. Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks. Cam Atkinson of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and goaltender Peter Mrazek of the Detroit Red Wings. We will tweet out the list. We will post it on our Facebook page. We'll put it up on our Instagram feed as well, at Hockey Unfiltered, to get those. And you can check it out on our website as well. 3 games on the Sunday schedule, all afternoon contest. Vegas at Washington. It's the homecoming for George McPhee. A little later on in the week, Tuesday, the Vegas Golden Knights go to Pittsburgh, and Marc-Andre Fleury is going to get himself some kind of reception that night. That's one of the games that I'm looking forward to this week. Actually, there's a bunch of good games. In fact, starting tomorrow with Anaheim in Toronto, Nashville Predators and the New York Islanders. Which Rangers team will show up to take on the Dallas Stars? Tampa Bay finishes up their Western swing. They had a nice victory over the Vancouver Canucks. They kind of held on for the victory, but they had a nice victory over the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday. They will finish up their swing through Western Canada coming up on Monday night. Then Wednesday, it's Nashville, Toronto, Boston, the Rangers, Edmonton, and Los Angeles. 3 games today, all finished in the afternoon. Get you set for the big game, Super Bowl and football. I don't really have a rooting interest one way or the other, just because it's different. Maybe say Philly, just to do something a little different. Our thanks to Stephen Laidlaw from DobberHockey.com, to Kyle Bukauskas from Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada, to Jason Mackey from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, and Chris Peters from ESPN.com. Have a great week of hockey. Enjoy the games, and we'll be back with you next Saturday and Sunday, 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific.
So you had to get groceries, take your daughter to dance class, and a pipe burst in the kitchen. You missed Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis. No problem. All of our shows are available as a podcast right after the show airs, so you can listen when life gets in the way of hearing us live. Subscribe through iTunes and get alerts as soon as the podcast is available, or go to our website, hockeyunfiltered.com, and listen. Plus, check out the other cool stuff, the Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis podcast. Subscribe now through iTunes. Get your business started getting more leads. 1-844-SEO-LEAD. The number to call if you want more online leads for your business is 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Search engine optimization can be the difference between success and failure. It's no coincidence which businesses are listed first in Google searches. Call 1-844-SEO-LEAD. Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis sends you to the biggest events at the best prices. This year, we've partnered with Seat Giant to give you special deals on tickets to NHL games, concerts, or other events. Simply go to SeatGiant.com, find the tickets you want. When you check out, use the promo code TODD for a special discount. That's promo code TODD for a special discount. Start saving with SeatGiant.com on your next purchase. Nova Product Design is designed for manufacturing. Nova Product Design can get the job done with mechanical and industrial design. Nova Product Design is also fully functional for laser cutting, water jet cutting, plating, coatings, and more. Nova Product Design, innovative design and the latest technologies. Nova Product Design can design, build, and test any required types of prototypes and beta units. Visit NovaProductDesign.com. We're looking for your Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day nominations every Saturday. Now you can send them through Instagram. Use the hashtag #HUDogoftheDay, send us a photo of your dog on Twitter or Instagram to nominate them as the HU Dog of the Day. Include your name, the dog's name, and any other cool details you want. We choose a winner and add them to the Dog of the Day gallery on our website and Facebook page. It's the Hockey Unfiltered Dog of the Day every Saturday. Hashtag HU Dog of the Day.